Welcome to the Discover College Gymnastics podcast. If you're a gymnast or parent of a gymnast dreaming of competing in college, you're in the right place. Each week, join me as I talk to college gymnastics and acro and tumbling coaches from across the country. They'll reveal what they look for in a recruit, what it's like to be a college athlete, and they'll talk about what makes their programs unique. All of this is presented in short, easy-to-consume episodes because, believe me, I know you're busy. If you're ready to jumpstart your college gymnastics dreams, you're in the right place. Let's get started. Okay, Coach Byrnes, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Casey. Appreciate it.
All right, so we were just talking. You are in your 26th year as head coach at Hamline, and I know even though you're a seasoned veteran, the beginning of the season is happening in a couple of months. So what are you most excited for this season before we jump into the podcast?
Well, I'm excited to, I guess, continue to work with the coaching staff I currently have, and the seeing how the team under the gun of competition manifests all the energy that the current coaches have been bringing to the table. That might sound a little canned. I didn't practice that. But I am excited about it. You know, we've got between, Kendra, Sean, Alexa, Amy, I don't know, they've taken a real stake. They've got a real sense of purpose in what they're doing, and their energy has been fabulous. And the team seems to really be enjoying the energy they've been bringing. And I say energy, I mean the drills, the skills, the assignments. So I'm excited to see just how the team, kind of manifests what they've been doing. And I'm excited and hopeful, and I have faith that they will. So I'm excited for that.
Awesome. It sounds like you have a nice team of coaches and support around you guys.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so let's jump into the nitty gritty and talk about recruiting. I know that's on the minds of a lot of high school athletes and their parents, and this world is kind of confusing and overwhelming sometimes. So when do you think is a good time for student athletes to start reaching out to coaches if they want to pursue gymnastics in college? Or is there an ideal time?
Well, I guess so. I'm Division III here at Hamline University. So I think the Division III model would have a slight tweaking from, say, the Division II or the Division I model that have full ride scholarships to partial athletic scholarships. Full ride, of course, being athletic scholarships. And right. The scholarships at Division III are need-based and merit-based only. Merit-based based upon academic and maybe community service and such things that are available to any athlete, not only just student athletes, but any student, I should say. So
yeah.
So our maybe timeline might be a little bit differently. So I'll go from the Division III. So for me, their junior year is typically the best. That's for me. But my observation for some of my coaching colleagues is they're probably going a little deeper into the maybe the sophomores, maybe even freshmen. I don't really know. But for me, Doug Byrnes, I seem to be best suited for people in their end of their sophomore year to junior year for making contacts with people that could be viable candidates to come to Hamline University. And it seems, they need to be making those contacts by their junior year, at some point in their junior year, earlier in their junior year than later. But that said, life is full of ups and downs, and everybody's different. And some people just don't get to it because of their lives. So it certainly doesn't cut somebody out if they're a senior and they've contacted me. Gosh, I'm happy to meet a senior who's still looking. Absolutely. Especially if that senior can bring something to the table statistically, gymnastically, in particular. So
okay, well, let's talk a little bit about that. Where do you find your ideal athletes? Like, how do you come up with your watch list? Is it camps, online, Instagram, going to meets?
It's a little bit of everything. I used to do a ton of camps back in the day, and I would make I would make, and then I have made a lot of connections with coaches through camps and just, socialization at national meets and such.
Right.
And, so you make those personal connections with coaches, and then they have kids, and sometimes you get connections through that. Otherwise, it's through, these athletes that are trying to find a home, and they're usually doing a pretty good job of self promotion, either because that's who they
Yeah.
are as people, and or they're working with services such as Luann Pesik's uh, uh, recruiting service, amongst all the other recruiting services out there. So
Okay.
they often reach out to me and or us. So that's another way, self promotion, that the athletes do themselves, either through their recruiting services or
Yeah.
because they're just self promoters. And then, going to competitions as well, and of course camps. So
Right.
it's a multifaceted thing. I went to the down in Clarksville, this showcase that the WCGA put on this year, and hosted by Larry Corrigan's gym, and went down there and met a bunch of coaches and saw a bunch of kids, and you do those sort of things.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's many
Awesome.
many many ways to go.
Yes, especially with the internet these days and Instagram and all the social media and all the meet scores being posted online. It's
Yeah,
endless.
and back to what you just, yeah, Instagram, of course, social media. Uh, here's something that's super important. That the athletes make sure they attach their links, to their social media accounts and or YouTube uh, channel, if you will. That's super important. To
Do
be
you
able
like
to
do you
go
like your
ahead.
athletes to have a YouTube highlight video or do you like Instagram or does it matter?
It doesn't really matter to me.
Yeah.
I'm a little more. Probably because of my age, I'm more used to YouTube
Yeah.
than I am Instagram. I think that's generational.
Yeah.
But I think it's important. I think you got to have an Instagram page for sure. That's
Yeah.
the nature of the beast these days. But YouTube's, for me, I like YouTube. You can slow things down. I have the video. You can go to
Right.
slow mo, so to speak. I don't know how to do that on
Yeah.
Instagram. If anybody
I
can
hear
tell
you.
me,
No, I feel you.
that'd be
I feel
great.
you.
So
Okay. What about qualities? Well, let's talk about qualities on and off the mat. So let's talk about on the mat first, like skill levels, levels. What are you looking
yeah,
for on the
well,
mat?
for me personally, so what I'm telling recruits these days is I'm only actively recruiting level 10s, and I'll be honest, that's a new thing for me. I was just always happy to work with anybody just about that would come through the door. If they had a certain level, like
Right.
level 9, really. If they're were level 8s, if they were really good on an event, we could develop an event into kind of level 10, but I've had a lot of level 9s, tons of level. I love working with level 9s. But the truth is, to be competitive, this is college, right?
Yeah.
It's the game of wins and losses. That's what people seem to remember. Did you win? Did you win?
Yeah.
Not did you develop?
Yeah.
you know, I, no,
I run
I
it.
don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not really a question most people ask.
I run into the same thing with my son's soccer team. It's just like, did you win? Did you win? Did you win? When it's
Of
really about
course,
development. Yeah.
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 And so that's the so for teams to have to be in the game of trying to win, really they have to have level 10 competence on an event. So, I might be, maybe I'm the last coach to say, I'm only actively recruiting level 10s. I've never said that before this year, but now I'm saying it. So that doesn't mean a level 9 can't go in and make a stake for herself. Of course she can, but she has to be willing to really bust it and show that she can bring level 10 capacity and competence on an event to her team. So what do I look for in athletes that I think can do that? One is a general sense of a general sense of self-efficacy, an ability to do, I can do, and perspective and composure when inevitably things don't go perfectly, which,
Right.
especially for somebody who's still trying to learn to get there, they have to have a certain perspective about them, that it's not the end of the world while they're learning. The learning
Right.
phase is part of the deal. And as part of the learning phase, having the ability to be a self-starter and to be able to figure it out when you're not constantly told exactly what to do.
Right.
And so for me, I found I've had the best experiences, and I believe the athletes have had the best experiences when they've had an ability to adapt to a variety of coaches around them, even teammates who coach them, and to us different coaches. All of us coaches are different. We have different backgrounds. We speak
Right.
differently. We'll say this. We'll be coaching the same skill, but we'll be saying different things about the skill, and we'll be bringing different priorities to the different facets of the skill itself. And the athlete has to be able to negotiate that, not always with a smile on her face, but with a composure that, she's just like a professional. She's kind of a pro. She's just okay, just trying to take the best of what she can take from
Yeah.
everybody around her, and then trying to make it work for her. And having the ability and wherewithal and even social intelligence to be able to do it, to try to do it again when she's not told exactly to go do it, if that makes
Right.
sense. Because the coaches have to work,
Yeah.
I have to work, we have to work with a variety of different people. And sometimes people have particular needs where you got to pay a lot of attention to that person, which means you're kind of not necessarily paying attention to this person over here. And if this person over here has to be told exactly what to do all the time, that's not sustainable unless you have a team of 5. And
This is all life skills, right? Like
yeah.
self-motivation and being able to handle criticism, working with a variety of people.
Yeah, exactly. And we coaches are human, whether it's me or our coaches or any other coaches. And sometimes you have maybe a regretful facial expression, or you have, I don't know, maybe you have to go, like I had to go let the dogs out and take the dogs for a walk and such, and I forgot about something. And so then I rushed back, and then I'm like, your heart rate's going, and sometimes people sense that even you're feeling there's something about your vibe that's maybe off-putting, but it's not personal against the gymnast, but sometimes the
Right.
gymnast perceive that it is. And so people with a high degree of self-efficacy and uh, I don't know, self-belief, and they can brush those external things off, and they can keep working in the moment. And I guess that's what I mean when I'm talking about perspective and
Yeah.
composure.
Right.
And sometimes public composure isn't the same as what you're really feeling privately. Just having the ability in a group setting to let it kind of brush off you more times than not. I mean, people are human. You got to give people a little bit of slack to have a little implosion now and again, I think.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
people need that, but it's more about if you just want to have less of those. So, I find that the athletes that seem to have the most success and particularly perform the best under pressure, because
Yep.
we already talked about the game of winning. It doesn't matter if you're in the Final Four for Division One, or you're trying to have your best showing at your last meet of your Division Three. All those stressors are almost the same, and if
Yeah.
you can bring those composures and perspectives to just a typical practice, that's practice for the biggest moment. And I've found that the athletes that seem to display those character traits in practice, in class, they generally resonate when those people are at their most stressed, in the biggest competitive moments.
Right.
Not always, and sometimes right. Sometimes you can have all these things and it still goes bad. That's how life is too. But
Yep.
sometimes those people recover a little quicker, and they can be good teammates in the moment, even though they fell on their face at the
Being
worst
res-
time.
being resilient in gymnastics is a very, very important quality.
Yeah, resilient. Man, I've been trying to find that word. That was the word I kept for not thinking about, but you said it. Resilience.
Well,
And
let's talk a
I
little.
believe
Oh,
people.
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I was going to say, I really believe people can learn resilience. They don't have to always come in as this prototype resilient human, just showing the skills of trying to be. Yeah,
Yeah.
if that makes sense,
Fake it till you make it. Fake
They can
resilience till you.
yeah, a little bit of ability to self forgive, to be kind to yourself.
Absolutely. Well, let's
Yeah.
talk a little bit about your school, Hamline University. A lot of people, well, especially out where I am in California, might not know about Hamline in beautiful St. Paul, Minnesota. And I know that you're probably biased because you've been there for 26 years, but tell us some cool things about your school that we might not be able to find just by visiting your website.
Sure. I think we're a fabulous academic school. It seems to me by observation that those that have gotten through 4 years of school here generally end up where they want to end up. If they want a job upon graduating, if they've been a good student and did the things they're supposed to do, they generally have a good job waiting for them. Many others gone to graduate school.
Right.
Generally, our athletes seem to end up in things like physical therapy school, in medical school, sometimes getting an advanced degree, graduate degree, PhD, uh, the one before PhD. What do they call that? That
A
one,
master's degree, yeah.
a master's degree. I knew
Yeah.
there was an A in there, but I couldn't pull it out. But a master's degree, they generally end up getting into the programs they want to. Not 100%, but generally they do. They're well prepared for their next steps. So I think Hamlin's a good investment into people's lives based upon what I've seen from my alumni.
Very
Um,
nice.
so that's cool. Our school's pretty small. We're 18-ish hundred undergrads. So there's a lot of attention from the professors. They
Yeah.
know the athletes. Of course, the athletes have to participate. The people don't bend over backwards to pull people out of the depths. They have to learn how to do
Right.
that themselves. But if people kind of connect the dots, people know who they are. So they have the opportunity for a lot of attention. The AD has done a remarkable job trying to keep us coaches with our finger on the pulse of how our athletes are doing academically, and making sure we're there for them to provide whatever kind of support or assistance we can as if somebody's struggling. And so there's a really good show of support from the athletic department. The Twin Cities are fabulous places.
I've never
It's
been.
Oh yeah, I mean, as cities go, right? As cities go, these are
Yeah.
great cities. St. Paul's a little smaller than Minneapolis. Minneapolis is a little bit more. Minneapolis reminds me of when I go to Dallas or if I go to Seattle. They kind of have that kind of vibe to me in size. Um, uh, I love Chicago. Chicago has a lot of traffic. Sometimes it's hard to get from point A to point B. That's no
Yes.
diss on Chicago. That's the brilliance of Chicago. Minneapolis and St. Paul, it's pretty easy to get from point A to point B. And what's the point of that? Well, sometimes athletes have, especially if they end up in something like want to go to med school or whatever, they have to do these, off-campus volunteer type
Right.
things, at
Yep.
clinics, hospitals, whatever, or any kind of job. It's actually pretty easy to get from campus door to door to your next thing off campus between public transportation and just their own transportation. It's easy to get around the Twin Cities, and the Twin Cities have a ton to offer, man. It's the food, I don't know, going to movies, uh,
Yeah.
hanging out somewhere cool. There's just a lot of cool places to go in the Twin Cities, and it's not overly packed. And they're great. They're just easy cities to coexist in. And the job opportunities here are fabulous. Yeah, as far as safety goes, anything 100% safe? No. Can bad things happen anywhere? Of course they can. But I've been here on campus a long time. I mean, 26 years head coach, and I was working with our club program in '89. I've been here in this midway area of St. Paul for like ever, and I've always felt just really comfortable, really. Like you can make a life, and people let you just kind of make your life here, and they don't give you a lot of hassle to be anything other than what you want to be, if that makes any kind of sense. I
Very
don't know if that
cool.
makes
Well,
sense.
Well, living in Chicago for 3 years and now near San Francisco, the traffic, I totally understand the traffic and the hassle and the getting around. And yeah,
Yeah.
that's one less thing for student athletes to worry about, right? And their
Yeah.
coaches.
Yeah, here's one thing. Gosh, I had a kid from she was so great, from Altadena, California. Her and her class, man, they were just incredible. Well, anyway, lives in this incredible community in California, and then she buys a house upon graduating, right? And I'm like, she's still here like 2 years later. I'm like, man, you're from like Pasadena area. Why don't you move home? And she's like, well, I can't buy a house
No,
I can't for what I could get here. There's no way I could get that back home. And, I wasn't even
nope.
thinking about that. And I was like, man, that's super cool.
$1 million for a two-bedroom is what the LA area brings to you.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So we're just it's a great place to start something.
mhm,
You don't have to stay,
awesome.
but it's a great,
Um,
the weather's great, man. Cold. There's nothing wrong with cold weather. I think it's a cool experience to navigate seasons. That's my bias.
Yes. Yeah, no, I navigated, being a California girl, definitely navigated 3 seasons or 3 winters in Chicago, and
Woo!
love it. It was nice, but now I'm back. But it's
Yeah,
great.
well, yeah, that's the thing, right? Nobody's signing anything in blood here. It's just all
Yeah. It's a great experience, and you go to college there and you can decide whether you like it or not if you want to stay, but it's good to live someplace else.
right on.
In terms of a typical week during the meet season, so coming up January, February, what does a typical week look like for your athletes in terms of practice, meets, strength and conditioning, class, etc.?
So the general footprint, we train Monday through Friday. Um, uh, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Monday through Thursday, we train 3 to 6 p.m. Central Standard
Okay.
Time. 3 to 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. Fridays, we train 2 to 4 p.m. 2 to
Okay.
4 p.m. Um, our Friday practice is typically a little bit more of an open style practice. They typically like to come in and play like a game, like volleyball or whatever, and that's
Yeah.
it's fine. We want them to have fun as long as it doesn't go too long. But
Yeah.
and they generally don't go too long. They don't, they have fun, and that's pretty cool. And then we generally kind of just, what do you guys think? What do you want to work here? What do you think you need to work on? And then we just have this little collaboration, and or I might say, Casey, I really want you to. I'm hoping we can do this. Is this going to fit what you want to do? That's a Friday. And
Okay.
every coach might have their own little agenda. It's fine. That's maybe a typical Friday. But Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday would be a little bit more of a typical, maybe structured gymnastics practice.
Okay.
A warm up that lasts 20 to 30 minutes, depending. Then 3 events, typically 40-ish minutes, sometimes 45. And
Okay.
then we end with typically a strength type set.
Okay.
The strength type set will be anywhere from, say, 25 minutes to, say, 10 minutes, depending.
Yeah.
Um, Typically, we'll do bars and beam every day. This is for an all-arounder now, an all-arounder. We'll do
Right. Yeah.
bars, beam every day, and then we alternate vault and floor. Now, if you're a 3 event specialist down to a 1 event specialist, then they're pretty much doing their events every day, but we try to alternate hard landings and soft landings, or
Okay.
tumbling and dance throughs, if you will, on
Yeah.
floor, or vaulting over the table versus vaulting drills. We utilize the trampoline as much as we can, never enough, but we utilize it as much as we're able.
And meets on the weekends, right? Is it every weekend during the meet season?
Great question. Great question. Sure. So typically it can be every weekend. And typically our first meet would be the first weekend after the new year. But
Okay.
sometimes our first meet is the second weekend after the new year. And then we typically have meets every weekend, except for occasionally there's a weekend off, depending.
Okay.
It all depends, So, just about every weekend there's meets after the new year. Typically, the meets are on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday.
Absolutely. So you have been so generous with your time. I really, really appreciate it. Before we start to say goodbye, could you give us one piece of advice, your best piece of advice to aspiring gymnasts who would like to compete in college?
Yeah, absolutely. God, it might end up being more than one, but I'll try to morph it into like a
No
package.
problem. Okay.
Well, people, they have to learn the skills. How do you learn the skill sets of having self-efficacy? How do you learn that skill set? Is that a
It's
skill
hard.
set, or is that just is something? I think that can be developed. Self-efficacy, a belief in yourself.
Yep.
You have to, with self-efficacy, aspiring gymnasts need to learn how to stand on their own feet and to be adaptable to their surroundings.
Yep.
High level gymnastics sometimes comes with very high level coaches, and very high level coaches are oftentimes this is what you do, this is what you do, this is what you do.
Yeah.
Now they're going to go to a new environment where their head coach might be a different personality than their club coach.
Right.
And the gymnast has to, in a short amount of time, adapt to their new surroundings. And most do. So having adaptability and then an ability to take the best of what they can from the people they're with and kind of let the other parts slide away. Even with teammates, I mean, as they go into this new thing of called the college team, I mean, they're dealing with humans that have all their own histories of trauma, of crap in their lives that can undermine them in any particular moment. And people have to coexist with each other, taking the best of each other and kind of letting the other parts slide away. And you have to sign up for that and volunteer for it, and then kind of every day act upon it. So that carries over into gymnastics. I think they having the ability to take the best of what they can from their coaches and make it work for them. And if it's not quite working, find their voice. And their voice doesn't have to be my voice or your voice. Find their way to communicate their needs with their coaches. And it doesn't have to be perfect communication. It's just got to be an attempt at communicating, so that they can try to rise up on the same page together if possible. And be open to what's offered to them around, and from the people that are trying to offer the best of themselves to these people. Now, all that said, they have to be able to bring something level 10 to the table. They've got to meet the rules. I think it's in everybody's best interest to find ways for their body and their skill sets to meet the rules. Not maybe always do something just because that's what their club did. Well, this is what we do. We don't do this. Well, okay. Right. That doesn't always work for everybody, even from that club. So meet the rules. Find a way to meet the rules and meet the rules well. And don't do anything more than the rules unless you're really, really, really good, So you got to bring something to the table. You got to bring something to your team.
I love all of this. This is great. Not only gymnastic skills, but life skills as well, Coach. Well, thank you so much for being with us. I really appreciate it. All of your expertise. Thanks so much for tuning in to Discover College Gymnastics. For the full episode transcript, show notes for the episode, and links to all of our social media, visit our website at discovercollegegymnastics.com. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast player so you never miss an episode. We'll see you next time as we sit down with another coach for an inside look at the world of college gymnastics.